Hello, and thank you for coming to the McWaters Effect. I'm your host, Matt. Today I'm looking at OAN, but first I need you to hit like and subscribe. Helps the channel grow. Let's take a look at this news article. Jason Snead, new Pelosi-Backed Voting Act, another election power grab. And there's a video. We'll go ahead and watch it.
The Executive Director of Honest Elections Project Action, Jason Snead, says that the new John R. Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act is a power grab over local state elections. One America's John Hines has more.
Jason Snead, Executive Director of the Honest Elections Project. There is this piece of legislation the Democrats want to introduce when they come back. It is called H.R. 4, the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. And Speaker Pelosi, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, has called this piece of legislation essential. She says Congress has not only an ironclad constitutional mandate, but a moral responsibility to enact H.R. 4 to combat destructive and discriminatory voter suppression. What do you make of those comments by the Speaker of the House, Democrat Nancy Pelosi, supporting H.R. 4, the so-called John R. Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act?
Well, I think that we should be clear what this piece of legislation is and what the policies in it are. It is a power grab over local and state control of our elections, and it is absolutely not necessary at this point in history. Despite the Speaker's comments, they have spent months, in fact years, trying to build a record to support the need to take over elections nationwide and weaken or eliminate basic voting safeguards, which is what this legislation does. And so far they have come up empty-handed, which is why they've unfortunately resorted to outrageous rhetoric accusing states of discrimination and racism and new Jim Crow to try to essentially scare people into supporting this legislation.
So you are saying that the John R. Lewis Voting Act, H.R. 4, is, in other words, is this, in your estimation, an unconstitutional measure being put forth by the Democrats in the House?
According to Speaker Pelosi, they were trying to make it more constitutional, I believe was her quote. Well, they had opportunities to improve the legal and constitutional foundation, and they had opportunities to try to come up with legislation that could be bipartisan. But at every opportunity, they ran, in fact, sprinted in the other direction. They have gone further, and what they have proposed is nothing short of a takeover of our elections and a direct attack on all of the basic safeguards that protect the integrity of our vote and make it both easy to vote and hard to cheat. It invalidates every voter identification law in the country on day one, and then allows the Justice Department to go through and evaluate each of them, and then potentially permanently invalidate them unless they simply allow someone to sign a piece of paper saying that they are who they say they are and vote. That's how extreme this piece of legislation is.
How might this legislation, H.R. 4, be unconstitutional? What constitutional rights does it violate, presumably, for voters across the country?
Well, it violates some of the provisions of the Constitution that require, for instance, that state sovereignty be respected, that states be treated equally, and under the Constitution, that states have the power to regulate our election system. I don't see anything in the U.S. Constitution or in state constitutions, for that matter, that says that when a legislature passes a bill and a governor signs it, that they have to then submit it to the federal government for a second chance at a veto. But that's essentially what this does. This bill would require that certain states have to submit election changes to the federal government, giving Washington the ability to control their election system and veto common popular safeguards like voter ID laws. In fact, as I said, it invalidates voter ID laws on day one. And the other thing that this does is actually incentivize progressive groups to sue states relentlessly because it counts the number of losses or even preliminary findings in court cases against states as proof that they are acting with discriminatory intent or that their laws are targeting minority voters.
All right, guys, that's the end of the article. And in my opinion, this is H.R. 1 on steroids. And they just changed the name of it and decided to put John Lewis's name on there. Now, John Lewis is a former senator and also a former civil rights activist. Well, not former, he still was until he passed away several years ago. And he's a legend in the civil rights movement. Well, the fact is they're going to use this, his name in there, and try to force Republicans to vote for this bill, even though the bill is widely unconstitutional. And if you don't vote for it, that means you're a racist. So they're going to definitely use race card when it comes to this bill. And the media is going to be all over it and so on and so forth. So you might as well be prepared for it. Now, of course, that's my opinion, but that's just, I mean, it's Democrats and the media. Of course they're going to go that route. They always go that route. They always go below the belt when it comes to bills like this in order to force people to do what they want. Now, guys, that's my opinion. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please hit like and subscribe. It helps the channel grow. Peace.